RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Wednesday, September 18th. We'll be taking a first look at the Week 3 NFL DFS slate on DraftKings. So hit that thumbs up button first thing in the door. Give me those thummy thumbs. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. Later today, we got Grinders Live. We got Crunch Time for MLB. So if you want to check out some baseball action, you can do so later today. We got all the tools. We got all the content. We got all the projections for you here at RotoGrinders. Feel free to join us with a combo premium subscription. Click on that link in the description. Get $40 off your first month. But joining me today, as we usually do on a Wednesday, taking a first look, just a little first look at some of the possible top plays, top projections, initial run of stuff, what's going on for Sunday slate in NFL. And join with me is Alex Sonty. And the thing that I notice about Sunday's slate, two main things, is that they put enough games at 4 o'clock, or the late set, depending on what time zone you're in. And more than half the games, I feel like I just don't want to play anyone from or watch at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. There are a lot of injuries going around, obviously. And, again, we're taking a first look at the slate. Do I want to play any underdog running backs? No. Do I want to play running backs even in tighter spreads? Maybe not. I mean, we look at these spreads too. Tampa 7 points. We got Vegas over Carolina. That's about 5.5. All these lines are pretty wide. So even just like thinking right away in terms of game script, there's going to be some low-ish scoring blowouts going on this weekend.
We see here with the first look. You can get this at rotogrinders.com. This is free. First look with all the little team by team matchup charts and the totals and the spreads, the D line versus O line matchups. You can look like I'm scrolling all the way down. You can get all of this, but we see here that the highest total games on the slate in the early set we got an Eagles Saints game 49.5, and then in the late set we got Ravens Cowboys 48.5, Lions Cardinals 52.5. I think that game was going to be a little bit popular. So let's move to the quarterbacks. So remember, we're talking primarily. Remember, this is number one first look, right? We still got practice news, injury stuff, how things are going to shake out, and also this is like without ownership. We're not concerned ourselves with GPPs or anything. This is mostly for cash game builds or who is going to be like the chalkier pieces on the slate. And we see the Arizona Cardinals with they have the 5th highest total, even though they are underdogs on the slate. That game, the Lions-Cardinals game, is going to be quite popular. The 3 most expensive quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson, 7,500, Jalen Hurts, 7,300, CJ Stroud, 7,100. But I feel much more inclined, and so do our initial run of projections, that Kyler Murray at 6,900 actually out-projects all 3 of them above. You get the mix, obviously, of passing and rushing, even though there isn't a rushing prop out for Murray yet, which is kind of similar to what you get with Lamar. Lamar's 7,500, Kyler Murray 6,900. Jalen Hurts is another quarterback that runs also. Philadelphia's the Eagles Saints game has a healthy total. Philadelphia with an implied total of 23.25. Like all these teams, and even Houston 24.25, but CJ Stroud really doesn't run the ball much. Then you get Anthony Richardson, who does run the ball, right, at 6,700, but the Colts are not as we can take a look. Where are the Colts? 22.25.
That's a low total.
Right. It's not awful. From a point per dollar standpoint, it feels like a lot of these quarterbacks are close. So if you wanted to play Lamar at 7,500 or Hurts at 7,300, I think that's perfectly fine. But I'll save a little bit of money and play Kyler Murray. I mean, do you see anything differently on this slate? I think if you're going to pay up at quarterback in DraftKings cash games, I think most people are going to play Kyler Murray.
I don't think I would spend $7K or more on a quarterback in the slate. I think, we got a 3-year-old coming in. I think Lamar Jackson is probably fine, but we're going to need a lot of rushing yards from him at that price. He's not a guy who throws 2-3 touchdown passes very often, whereas Kyler Murray is a guy who has a passing touchdown upside of 3 or 4 touchdown passes with the rushing upside of maybe he doesn't have Lamar's 110-yard upside in the game, but I mean he could get 80 yards and a touchdown. I think looking at Jalen Hurts is another guy with that. But do I want to spend $400 more on Jalen Hurts against in New Orleans? I don't really think so. I mean, looking at the projections, I'm going to save some money. I'm just going to save the money on Kyler Murray. If something forces my hand to Anthony Richardson is at home in a dome. And he's got the big rushing upside. He throws for big plays. He could really break a slate anytime. Kyler Murray has more of a history. He's a little bit better. He's in a much higher scoring game. He's just checking all the boxes for me. Kyler Murray's checking all the boxes for me. It's a good price. It's a fast game. It's going to be in a dome. It's checking all the boxes for me.
What I've learned in NFL DFS
weapons
in this era, I'm not talking about the low passing volume or the talking points with the small sample sizes, but like I find that the mid range at quarterback is I try not to play unless it's a rushing quarterback. Like rushing quarterbacks are so much more valuable to me than any other type of quarterback because their floor is higher and their ceiling is higher. So like CJ Stroud, nice in theory, right? Can he go out and throw 4 touchdowns? Sure, but he kind of needs to.
But right? We need those 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Right. You need those. At least with Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson, you can get to 20 points with only 1 passing touchdown because of a rushing touchdown and 60 rushing yards. I mean, 40 rushing yards is the equivalent of a passing touchdown. And most of these guys get 40 yards on the ground. And then if I'm not going to be playing, and this is talking about cash game, I'm talking about this is small field cash game environments, not, you're taking one guy and stacking 3 teammates, that type of thing. That if I'm not going to play one of these guys, then I want to pay under $6K and as cheap as possible.
Totally.
So like we got like Baker Mayfield at 6,300, Derek Carr at 5,800. The Saints playing well. Jared Goff in a high total. The Lions have a high total. Jared Goff 6,500. Even Dak at 6,600. It's like
it's too much money for guys who aren't going to run.
Right. But I think the difference between these guys, Purdy at 6K, it's like, why don't I just go down and play Gardner Minshew at 5,300? If I'm gonna play someone like that, why don't I just play Andy Dalton or Skylar Thompson or just Deshaun Watson at 5,500, Daniel or Sam Darnold? Hell, like the pocket passing type of quarterbacks. It feels like why am I going to pay $1,000 more for someone that maybe they play for a little bit better of a team, but I'm not looking necessarily for a ceiling. I'm just looking, can this guy give me 15 points? And I think the guys, I think you could get Sam Darnold or Gardner Minshew, Geno Smith at 5,600. I mean, I don't mind Derek Carr at 5,800, but you better be getting stuff in the rest of your lineup if you're going to be playing these guys because the quarterback upside is going to be much lower. I mean, they have 8-point, 9-point, 12-point games in their range of outcomes that, these high-priced quarterbacks really don't have. But if I play a high-priced quarterback, Kyler Murray only gives me 18 points. I might as well have played some $5,500 quarterback. I don't think we should be scared as much to play low-priced quarterbacks in cash game environments. That's like the old school way that you would do it anyway. The thing is, I just don't want to get stuck. I don't want to get stuck with a non-rushing quarterback that's not cheap enough. That I could use the 1,000 somewhere else much better than play Baker Mayfield against Denver.
Yeah, and there are a few guys under 6K that are interesting, but we could flip coins on them. The problem is just talking about lineup construction on this slate. We don't need to save $1,000 a quarterback, I don't think, this week. So it's one thing if we needed to save $1,000 a quarterback, you go toward, you know, I wouldn't go Sam Darnold, but like Geno Smith, for example, at 5,600, you save for $1,300, and that $1,300 gets used elsewhere. I'm kind of struggling to. It's not like there are two or three guys we're going to spend money on this slate. Just kind of clicking around, I pretty much easily fit in. We're going to live in the mid range a lot on this slate in cash.
Right.
But
But once we get the running back and wide receiver,
we'll get there.
People will see you're probably spending money at quarterback because
you're probably spending money at quarterback. And I think, we're going to jump ahead of ourselves. We're going to get to this discussion. We had it last week too on Amon-Ra St. Brown. What you're doing with Amon-Ra St. Brown might dictate what you do at quarterback, because he's 8,200. I don't think you need to spend the money on Amon-Ra this week, but if you want to spend that money on Amon-Ra St. Brown, or if Justin Jefferson plays and you want to spend that money there, then maybe you consider the sub 6K quarterback. But I don't think we need to spend that much on wide receiver.
And the thing is that Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson may not play either.
Yeah, it's a disaster out there.
Let's talk about running backs. Okay. This is the position that I think this is much more of a spend up position on FanDuel personally than on DraftKings.
Yes,
this week,
very much so.
We still have news that we still need to know what's going on with Joe Mixon. Is Joe Mixon going to play? And then if Joe Mixon doesn't play, are we looking at Cam Akers? Are we looking at Dameon Pierce? Are we looking at those guys? We need to figure out what's going on. Who else is there any other injury at running back?
Kenny Walker.
Yes,
that's left over from last week. We don't want to forget. We don't want the shiny new toys to make us forget about the other shiny toys that are underpriced too. I mean, Jordan Mason is still, they priced him up, but he's still 6,200. That's he's a shiny newer toy, but it won't be as new as whatever we get later in the week. Zach Charbonnet is going to be 6K. Jerome Ford is in a nut matchup, and we talked last week about just kind of emptying benches against the Commanders, the Giants, and the Panthers. Jerome Ford gets a really nut matchup against the Giants, and he's only 55.8K. So I mean, my looking at it right now, I'm in a very fixed view right now on Charbonnet, Ford, and Mason, because I'm not sure we need to spend up to Saquon Barkley. Again, if we find the money, it sounds like a great idea to spend money on Kamara or Barkley, but for right now, I'm just looking at those three value pieces right there.
I'm not sure if this Ford projection is going to stick this way. I think he's overprojected. That'll probably get adjusted because Deonta Foreman ate into like a lot of his work the last game, so maybe I'm not going to be as confident on Jerome Ford, but. Another thing we need to look at is what the status of Jeff Wilson Jr. and how much usage Devon Achane is going to use. I think he's going to end up being way more popular than he should be. Obviously, he has the upside there. Even playing in a Skylar Thompson-led Dolphins offense, like they look to get him the ball. I mean, it's quite possible.
In a lot of ways. In a lot of different ways, they try to get him the ball, which is interesting about Achane.
Because it's quite possible that Skylar Thompson can hit Tyreek, and it's just like these 4-yard routes to Achane, and he could just rack up PPR points. But let's just consider the fact, I mean, at the running back position specifically, I typically do not like playing low total underdogs.
Of course.
Because I mean...
And there are a lot of low total underdogs on this slate.
Right. So Miami's has an 18.5 implied team total as a nearly 5.5 point underdog to the Seahawks. I'm not rushing to spend 7K. It's like if I'm going to spend 7K on Achane, why don't I play one of the running backs in the Philly Saints game, like Barkley or Kamara? Especially Barkley, because Barkley, I mean, these first two games, this guy does not come off the field.
No,
I
don't
mean,
know what
like
his snap count was in the
Gainwell
second game.
is a nothing. I mean, like
No.
Barkley will catch passes out of the backfield. The problem with Barkley, and which dings his projection, is that his touchdown rate, just like any other Eagles running back for the past couple of
Mhm,
years, his
mhm.
touchdown rate is going to be lower simply due to Jalen Hurts
Jalen
and
Hurts.
the push at the 1 yard
Yeah.
line. So, but from a floor perspective, I mean, I don't. If I'm going to pay up for anyone on this slate, it feels like I want to pay up for Saquon Barkley. But we may not even have to live in this range. What you mentioned before, I think the first click into your lineups on DraftKings and cash, maybe not on FanDuel because they actually priced them up properly.
Yeah, they got
Jordan
him up.
Mason at 6,200. We have McCaffrey on the IR. Debo is out now.
Mhm,
Okay. Debo also got some rush. I mean, maybe not last game, but he does take some rushing yards, some
mhm.
rushing opportunities. They apparently don't trust anyone else, apparently, for Shanahan at all. And you'd think, oh, McCaffrey's out and Debo's out. Oh, maybe these 49ers, Brock Purdy and isn't all that great. San Francisco is still over a touchdown favorite against the Rams on the road. On the road,
On the
they're
road.
they're a touchdown plus favorite on the road to the Rams. The best archetype in DFS for running backs is the bigger the favorite and the bigger the workload. And whether or not
And this
Jordan
is
Mason
not
catches any passes out of the backfield, I could care less. If he gets 25 touches, given to me at 6,200. They did not. Probably should be priced at 7,500, but he's not. So Jordan Mason will be the first guy into my DraftKings cash game lineups.
and we're going to talk about this a little when we get to wide receiver. We're not speculating here that Jordan Mason is, the only guy and he might get a lot of touches. We have a very long history of Kyle Shanahan running the football a lot, even in situations where conventional wisdom says to pass a lot. He wants to run the football. He wants to get the ball in the running back's hands at high volume, which is, it's not just a Christian McCaffrey thing. This happened before Christian McCaffrey. He likes to put the ball on the ground a lot. So to have one guy there that he trusts, when Kyle Shanahan trusts one running back, that guy gets a lot of volume.
I also echo your sentiments on Zach Charbonnet. If Kenny Walker is out, typically this would be a matchup that you don't play Zach Charbonnet against the Dolphins, but Tua is not the quarterback anymore.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks have a 23-point total at home as a 4.5, 5-point favorite. I'll take that as the same archetype that I'm looking for. Another one in this range, although not the greatest of matchups, and we have to wait on news for him. I think by the end of the year, he's not going to be worth playing anymore. But the Buccaneers, another touchdown favorite against the Bo Nix-led Broncos, who actually have a pretty good defense, but they have an offense that just doesn't do anything. I don't mind playing Rachaad White at 6,100, and I think the keywords there is I don't mind, not I'm excited for playing that.
Yeah.
Another one, which I believe his projection will get fixed also, is Zamir White at 5,500.
We were talking about emptying the benches against the Panthers, the Commanders, and the Giants. He's just an example of they're going to score points. They're going to be big favorites. He's going to get the ball. Why not?
Right. I don't mind Zamir White as so we have all these guys in the 5K, 6K range, and once we get to wide receiver, you'll see a lot more of those. Now you could literally build a lineup, I think, without ever spending more than 7K on a player, and you would look at the names and go, I don't mind this at all. Right? But if I'm going to spend up, Alex, outside of Barkley, this guy is an ownership dependent play. This is not a cash game play, but just from you have Kyren Williams there at 7,100. Most people would play Kyren Williams with his workload, but not as a 7.5-point underdog. But I mean, I wouldn't say you're awful for playing Kyren Williams. Same thing for Joe Mixon if he plays. But the guy, this is pure. I know we wait till Friday for GPPs, but Jahmyr Gibbs at 6,800 is like the complete archetype of a player that could score 30 plus fantasy points.
He can score 25 without scoring a touchdown.
Right.
That's what's great about Jahmyr Gibbs.
The thing is that in GPPs, if Gibbs is 20% owned, I don't want to touch him. Right. 5% owned, sure. But that. The Lions running backs are both good. It's just, they're just GPP plays only. I mean, if you're playing Gibbs or Montgomery in cash, I think you're doing it wrong. I'd much rather play Connor on the other side at 6,600. But still, I almost feel like this is also another lost range where I'd rather just go all the way up to Barkley at 7,700 or go down and play, even guys like Najee Harris, aren't awful, right?
I prefer
favored against the Chargers. I mean, are the Steelers favored against the Chargers? Yeah, they're amazingly favored against the Chargers.
Najee gets the ball a lot, but it's so much just run up the middle and fall down. And,
right.
I mean, you can stumble into a touchdown or two like that. Yeah, it isn't crazy at 5,600. I think last week he was 5,200, and I was mildly interested.
But as long as I'm paying $5K for that type of work,
yeah,
that's a different story. I don't pay $7K for that stuff.
I don't think we're not thinking about Najee Harris in cash though. There are too many other options. And when your point on Kyren Williams, I think that is kind of crazy. That spread is way too wide. I get it that they're at home and there's not really many other places to go with the ball. But San Francisco could also just waffle crush them for, they kick 2 field goals and get nothing else. That's very much in the cards for the Rams.
Okay. We're talking about the Rams. Let's go to wide receiver. So wide receiver news that we need to watch out for. Okay, let's just go game by game just to make sure we got all this covered. Okay, Giants, Cleveland. Okay, we don't have to worry about the news there. Minnesota, we need both Addison and Jefferson. So if Addison is out, again, obviously Naylor is going to be the wide receiver 2 again for Minnesota. If Jefferson is out, just the meme with Big Bang Theory when he throws all the papers up, it's I don't know what's going to happen there. Eagles, we got AJ Brown still out, so he's not going to be playing. Nothing in the Steelers game. The Bucks, no. Packers, Malik Willis. Yeah, good luck to you on playing anyone on the Packers. Andy Dalton is going to be quarterback in the Panthers. Skylar Thompson is going to be quarterback in the Dolphins. And we need word on Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then obviously we have Debo out and we have Cooper Kupp on the IR in that game, the game with a million injured players in it. Let's start at the top. We got CeeDee Lamb, 8,800 against Baltimore. Jefferson, if he plays, 8,600 against Minnesota. Tyreek Hill, 8,400 against Seattle. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8,200 against Arizona. Then there's aren't many receivers even higher than 7K. So we got Devontae Adams at 7,600 against the Panthers. Marvin Harrison Jr., 7,400 against the Lions. Nico Collins, 7,300 against the Vikings. And Mike Evans at 7,200 against the Broncos. From a cash game perspective, I don't see myself playing any of these guys at all. Either. From a GPP perspective, I think Tyreek Hill, this maybe the lowest owned that Tyreek Hill ever gets, but of course, we're not talking about GPPs until Friday. If he's healthy, I think maybe Amon-Ra is the best point per dollar option out of this bunch. But I would rather play Saquon Barkley at 7,700 over Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8,200 if we're talking about a flex spot, or even Kamara in a flex spot. Once we get into the 6K range, the 6K range has some. I look at the 6K range and I may want to play 5 of these receivers over the running backs in the 6K range.
Yeah.
Why? Unless you're going GPP purely for ceiling, I don't see a reason to play anyone over 7K in my cash game lineup on DraftKings.
My dummy lineup, the only 2 guys near 7K are Kyler Murray and Devontae Smith. And I think Devontae Smith is clearly the top play, one of the top plays on the entire slate. Because
And
without
and,
AJ
and Devonta
Brown,
and Devonta Smith is 6,900. So
he's only 6,900. I mean,
right.
this is just like this is way too cheap for the volume. When AJ Brown plays, he's good for 6 to 8, maybe even 9 targets as a ceiling. Without AJ Brown there, I think he had double-digit targets. He should get double-digit targets again. It's in the Dome in New Orleans. They're a little bit down. Maybe they throw a little more toward the end of the game. I just love Devontae Smith in this situation. So that's kind of the first guy I'm probably plugging into my lineup without question. He and Jordan Mason. So I don't know. I mean, is there someone else that stands out to you over Devontae Smith? Because I don't think that's just kind of my top play at wide receiver right there for
Right.
cash.
Well, the Eagles have a 23.25 implied team total heading into New Orleans, and Devonta Smith is by far the number one receiver now. The Eagles use, but of course their offense is kind of wonky, so it's not like the type of thing where he was going to get like 18 targets or anything, but he's clearly the top option. They'll spread the ball
we don't need
around.
15 targets at 6,900.
I don't even know if he but still probably 12. I mean,
if he gets 10 or 12, like we're
10,
money.
I think he got 7 catches for 10 targets. But they're also, remember, these are good targets. These aren't bull crap, 2-yard, whatever type of targets.
These aren't Zay Flowers targets.
Right. In the 6K range, I mean, boy, you're going to have options. I think going back from a cash game perspective, I think going back to Chris Godwin at 6,500.
Perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. I think Brandon Ayuk, 6,200. He was the second guy that I plugged in to my lineup because the 49ers still have a 25 implied team total. And I feel like you're going to play 2 49ers in your lineup, whether it be Ayuk or a cheaper wide receiver for the 49ers. We'll talk about once we get down to that level. We'll talk about him. I don't mind Chris Olave at 6,300. Both Ayuk and Olave are actually much cheaper on FanDuel. If you're playing FanDuel cash, I tried to put together my FanDuel cash lineup, and I had like 3,000 left over. Like it's like, I need to just spend up in one of these spots just for raw points because like I need to do something, right? Because I mean, you could fit too many people in FanDuel. The only question in this range that I have is on one guy, and that's Malik Neighbors at 6,400. We saw against the Commanders, Neighbors had 18 targets on 28 pass attempts. It's quite clear that Daniel Jones is, one, bad, and two, still likes throwing a ton to Malik Neighbors. Cleveland, I'm not a big fan of playing, pass catchers or offenses on the road in Cleveland against the Browns. The Giants have a 16.25 implied team total.
And Neighbors isn't 5,800 anymore.
Right. But still 6,400. I mean,
it's affordable. It's affordable. I'm not saying he isn't affordable. But
I mean, if you're gonna tell me, Alex, no matter what the week is, that Neighbors is gonna get 12 plus targets. I mean, 6,400 is just too cheap. I mean, it's just like the thing is that his ceiling may be lower against the. I mean, he made 8 for 80 and no touchdowns. And I'll take the 16 points in cash games for 6,400. That's fine.
Yeah.
But Neighbors could be popular this week and just not do enough to kill you. Like it's like he's fine. Like I put him in the fine, but typically in cash games, especially, I just don't like playing. I try not to, when given the choice, to play teams that are this big of an underdog with the. I mean, they may have the lowest implied. They may actually have the lowest implied team total on the slate.
They may not score a touchdown this weekend.
Right? No, they literally have the lowest implied. Them and Denver.
Okay.
So the Giants and the Broncos. Right. So here, if I told you, Alex, I know this is a straw man type of case. if I told you, Alex, that Cortland Sutton was going to get 12 targets, would you be rushing to play Cortland Sutton with Bo Nix throwing the ball? He's going to get 12. Well, he's going to be behind and get 12. No, he's still not going to. I mean, like the getting 12 targets and only 4 receptions doesn't do you anything. They're you can't pay your rent with targets. They actually need to
4
catch
for
the
45
ball.
yards. They need to. Well, they have to be catchable balls,
Right.
and that's I think the downside with Neighbors and Cash. If this is going to be a more competitive game, where their total is in the 20 range, maybe I would consider it. In Cash, I think in GPP, Neighbors is on the list because the volume is there to where he can get 20 points without a touchdown as a ceiling. Right. But there's a great chance that the Giants do not score a touchdown. There's a great chance that he can get 10 or 12 targets and only catch 4 or 5 of those balls, and they're not very deep balls. Are they going to be catchable balls? I think there are other spots when we haven't talked about the value yet of throwing a dart at the Rams of who's going to get the ball in LA or Juwan Jennings. We haven't talked about him yet. These are the extreme value plays. We're taking some risks.
Alex,
we're taking. If I'm going to take risks on the amount of actual receptions that will manifest, I might want to save the money on Demarcus Robinson and Juwan Jennings. Because sure, Neighbors is going to get a lot of targets. He'll get probably more targets than Robinson and Jennings, but they could get the same amount of receptions for cheaper.
Right. I think I would prefer this is my thought process on the Rams wide receivers. I'm going to do whatever I can to avoid it. I think I would rather
in Cash. I don't think that's a dumb play.
Right, but even in GPPs, I think they're going to be overowned. I take a look. I would rather play Juwan Jennings at 4,100. I would rather play Tank Dell at 5,200. I would rather play Rashid Shaheed at 5,300. And then we have Robinson at 5K, Johnson at 4,700, the Rams receivers. And my thought process is this. Tell me the last time you played a Patriots wide receiver in Cash. Do you remember? Do you normally play Demario Douglas at 4,300? Do you?
No.
I'm not talking about a 3K. I'm talking about do you normally play? Let's take a look at another team. Do you normally play Jerry Jeudy at foot? Do you normally play Green Bay? Let's take a look at the Packers. Are you down for playing? Let's see what is Jalen Reed is. Okay, he's very
none
expensive.
of them. He's
right, but Watson. You want to play Christian Watson at 4,900? Do you want to play Romeo Dobbs at 5,600? No. To me, Demarcus Robinson is Romeo Dobbs. Is Demario Douglas. Is dude, the Rams are bad. So think of what you would let's not think of the Rams as
doesn't Demarcus have that? Doesn't Demarcus have the reception upside though?
Sure,
just getting low value targets and maybe I see what you're saying here.
How many 3 and outs are we going to get? 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. I mean, I feel like Tank Dell at 5,200 or Rashid Shaheed are at least playing for functional offenses with very high team totals
and they can get
good game environments where maybe their floors are a little bit lower than Robinson and Johnson. But they could bail me out with 20 plus points easily. Robinson,
they could bail you out. I think
we also don't know, Alex. We also don't know that they price these guys up. These aren't $3,600 wide receivers anymore. And who knows if the game starts at 4 whatever Eastern time. It's the last game. There's no swapping. There's no nothing. And the first 3 passing plays are to Tutu Atwell or Whittington, and they're rotating their guy, and then they're playing 2 tight end sets, and the next thing you know, it's why did I pay $5K for a guy that for Demarcus Robinson of all people, right?
Well, then I think what you're saying is Dell and Shaheed at the same price can get there in 2 plays.
Right.
Whereas Demarcus Robinson, we need a lot of the dink and dunk to go his way to rack up the receptions, because I think the Rams are kind of in a similar, they're not as bad of an offense as the Giants, but they might not score a touchdown this weekend.
Right.
There's a very good
Like,
chance they do not score a touchdown.
Are you playing George Pickens in cash? The Steelers have a higher implied team total than the Rams.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's
So I
Pickens?
could
5,700. I mean, like,
I could
you're gonna
buy
pay
into
5K for Demarcus
taking a
Robinson?
shot on, yeah, for 5K I could buy into taking a shot on these guys who can get one or two deep throws and just get there. Just right there, you're done. They get their 3 catches for 65 yards and touchdown and call it a day. You know. That's not a bad approach to
Right.
a cash game 5K
Any of the
receiver.
wide receivers that you're looking at as of now, as far as more cash game-esque type of builds?
Not really for cash. I mean, because I don't want to spend more than 7K. I mean, Marvin Harrison's obviously interesting in a vacuum, but no, I'm not gonna. I just don't need to spend that much money. Chris Godwin is right there at 6,500. Brandon Ayuk is right there at 6,200. Brandon Ayuk is a lower ceiling guy. I think a lot of people are going to misplay him in tournaments. We're not talking tournaments, because I mean, I talked about this with the running backs. Kyle Shanahan is going to run the ball a lot in this situation. This is not a situation where Brandon Ayuk is going to get 15 to 18 targets because he's the only guy. But still, I mean, it's a good cash play. It depends on but this is where we go back to line of construction. Are you going to spend 6,900 on quarterback, or are you going to spend 7,700, or are you going to spend 5,800? That's going to dictate what you do at your second wide receiver position. And we're going to get to tight end in a second. But are you going to spend 6K on Trey McBride? Are you going to spend 5,400 on Brock Bowers? Or are you going to punt it for 3K? That's going to dictate what you do at wide receiver too.
Mari Dagizi asks, do you trust any of the Carolina receivers with Andy Dalton throwing them the ball? Not in cash games. The Carolina Panthers have a 17.75 implied team. I mean, to me, it has nothing to do. It just, like, the best heuristic in NFL DFS is just implied team totals, and the means of the teams that have better offensive environments. It's just like baseball, like with team totals and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's more variance in baseball, but like, it has nothing to do with trusting with that. Yeah, I trust them more with Andy Dalton throwing the ball, but I'm not in the business of playing receiver roulette for a team that's nearly a touchdown road underdog with a dysfunctional offense. Like, give me a Raider. I mean, I'd rather play Jacoby Myers than Deontay.
That's what I just looked up.
Like, give me the teams.
Yeah,
it's not that complicated. The NFL, most of the time, you see, give me the teams that are going to score a lot of points, and I want players from those teams, and just it's very easy. And the more condensed the offense is, the easier it is. That's why I don't mind Chris Godwin. It's like the ball doesn't go many places for the Buccaneers, right? That you deal with a team like Philly. Like, it's going to be Hurts, it's going to be Barkley, it's going to be Devonta Smith, and you're done. I mean, like,
and the Buccaneers have a very effective quarterback. Baker Mayfield is a very effective quarterback, throwing good targets. These aren't just, I mean, Deontay Johnson can get 10 targets, but they're going to be bad targets. Chris Godwin can probably do more in 8 targets than Deontay Johnson can in 10 targets from Andy Dalton.
To put things into perspective, I'd much rather play Amari Cooper this week than anyone from the Panthers.
How much
Browns
is Cooper?
have a 22.25 implied team total. They're going to score points on the Giants.
I think everyone's going to score points on the Giants all year. That's what we talked about earlier in the show. Yeah, so, I mean, Amari Cooper, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. 6,100, perfectly fine.
Tight end, you mentioned it before. Trey McBride, 6,200. If you're going to pay up, I think he's definitely worth paying up for. But if I'm not going to get McBride, I probably don't want to do anything in the middle.
I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more value on Brock Bowers, but good job, DraftKings.
Yeah, no, they priced him appropriately.
They priced him really well. Really well.
And this is more of a lineup construction thing. Do you want to play Trey McBride at 6,200 at tight end spot, or do you want to play a third 6K wide receiver or running back? That's really what it's going to come down to. So it's like, do you want to play Brandon Ayuk or Trey McBride? Do you want to play Chris Godwin or Trey McBride? Like that type of thing. Or would you rather play Juwan Jennings at 4,100 or a tight end that's cheap. I'm much more likely obviously on FanDuel. You don't have to worry about this. FanDuel, you're just playing McBride because FanDuel is the softest. Other than they priced Jordan Mason properly there. You're probably not playing Jordan Mason on FanDuel. But everything else is just, I mean, what are they doing? I mean, especially if Mixon doesn't play. They got Cam Akers at $4K.
Cam Akers is nothing.
Right. It's nothing.
Below punt pricing. I don't even know.
Right. And then also
Alex over there.
Alex, I know we're not going to talk about it since we're talking about the DraftKings slate, but FanDuel has the night game on it, and they got like Carson Steele at like 4,700 or something like that, or 5,200. P Ryan at 6,200. Like, we don't know what's going on with the
It's Chiefs, a different build. If we were talking FanDuel cash, we'd be talking a lot of stars and scrubs. On DK, for what we have right now, the information we have right now, we're finding a lot of stuff between 5,500 and 7K. A lot of really good stuff between 5,500 and 7K at every position.
I don't mind. Like, if I'm going to pay, like, I don't mind Pat Freiermuth at 4K, even though I'm not in the business of playing Steelers guys. But outside of that, like, I'm fine with, if Njoku's out, I'll play Akins. Akins busted last week, but, dude, they're playing the Giants.
It's the Giants. The Giants in the red zone are.
I don't care.
It's some of the worst red zone offense in the league, or some of the worst red zone defense in the league.
Right.
Yeah,
really,
I mean,
really, Alex. When it comes down to it, even if you play a 3K tight end and get like 2 points, like that's perfectly fine. It's the cheapest you could get in an entire lineup, and I feel so much more comfortable with the punting with the 3K tight end than playing some 4K wide receiver that may end up with getting only 3 points also, because you're paying a little bit more for the low floor, low ceiling play. I think wide receiver. I think there's a lot of opportunity costs at wide receiver this week in the mid range, and I think there's just not enough opportunity cost at the tight end position. Like, I think you're going to need in cash games. You're going to need all your wide receivers to not have the ice emoji, right? You may not need flame emojis, but I don't think you could get away with an Alan Lazard like play I don't think you could get away with that at wide receiver. You could much rather get away with that at tight end.
And I'm again just looking at wide receiver again as we just talked it out, and then looking at tight end. Are there any under 5K? There's a lot of really good value on this slate, but under 5K, I'm not seeing any wide receivers I really want to play. I mean, Juwan Jennings is probably the one that I would consider, but so that's where you want to save that money at tight end. That's where we could punt that money at tight end.
Right.
And yeah, we can, for the same price as Trey McBride, we can get Brandon Ayuk, we can get Chris Godwin.
Right. So, I mean, I'm putting together a lineup right now, like we put, Murray in, we put Akins in, we put Devonta Smith in. Like, all the receivers I want to play: Smith, Godwin, Ayuk. Still got 51-25.
We haven't plugged in Mason. We haven't saved money on Ford or Charbonnet. One of those two.
Right. Mason, Sharp. Right. 41.50.
You get a $2,600 defense, and that's a lot of money left over for a flex spot.
Right. Right. You could play the Bears defense. 5,700. I mean, you could play.
Yeah.
Zamir White. You could play.
There's Zamir White right there.
Right. I mean, depending on what you want to go up or down. I mean, if you don't want to pay up for Murray, you could get another 6K guy, right? If you want to, play Juwan Jennings instead of Ayuk, you could go up and down. I mean, like, this is kind of what the build is going to you don't need an 8K receiver.
You're either going to save $1,000 somewhere. Is it going to be saving $2,000 or $3,000 at tight end, saving $2,000 at your wide receiver 3 position, or saving like $1,500 at quarterback? Somewhere you're gonna make that decision as to where to save, and that's a personal decision. You can see what the projections say come Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Right, because you could also do something like this. Right, there you go: Murray, Mason, Charbonnet, Smith, Godwin, Jennings, and then you play Saquon Barkley at 7,700.
That's a very strong lineup.
Right.
It's a lineup that makes sense. We haven't gotten to defense yet, but I talked about this last week with I think I would rather play a defense against the Colts on the road, away from that dome, away from the turf, because Anthony Richardson can just he can be a one-man wrecking crew in the dome. But the logic I had behind the Packers last week was he runs a lot, he gets the ball in his hand a lot, which is a lot of chances for him to put the ball on the ground. One. Two, he takes a lot of deep shots. Anthony Richardson throws a lot of deep balls. This isn't Lamar Jackson throwing 57 screens a game. This guy is throwing a lot of deep passes. When you throw a lot of deep passes, interceptions are just going to come. Maybe you get a lucky Hail Mary interception. Maybe you get, at the end of a half, this guy just takes shots, and the Bears are ball hawking. So why not? The Bears can give up 24 points and still get double-digit fantasy points.
Right. I don't care about the points allowed. That's why I want to make a comment on one of these defenses. I think a popular defense is going to be the Buccaneers at 3K against Bo Nix, which makes sense. Another popular one may be the Titans at 2,700 against the Packers. But I'd rather play the Bears. I'd rather play the Saints. I'd rather play the Vikings. I'd rather play the Broncos. And you know why? I think this Titans projection is so much of it is in the points allowed space.
Mm-hmm.
If we saw what the Packers did with Malik Willis, which they did very smartly, they basically said, we're going to make it so that you have to throw the ball the least if we can. And that's what they did.
That's not what we want from our DST.
No, that's not what we would. Why? We don't want to. We don't want to run. Yeah, sure. If you told me the Packers only scored 10 points, that doesn't mean that the defense did well. Because if he's not dropping, if he only has 10 dropbacks, right?
Yeah.
And 8 pass attempts, like run stops are not points. Like you can't get.
Yeah.
If they're not dropping back to pass or anything, like it's hard to score points as a DST.
Yeah.
I'd much rather.
We don't get points for punt attempts and 3 and outs.
Right.
And, we need interceptions. We need fumbles. We need pick sixes. We need, safeties. We need these big events to happen. For these big events to happen, we want our opposing offense taking big risks.
Right. So I don't mind. I'd rather play the Saints even against the Eagles. The Saints could give up 28 points, but they get a pick six on Hurts. There are fumbles there. They pass the ball enough. But my favorite would be both teams in the Bears Colts game.
The Bears Colts game, yeah.
The Colts at 3,200. I know Buckner is out. The Colts defense is going to take a hit. But still, obviously, we've seen with Caleb Williams that he's prone to be making a ton of mistakes. So that's kind of where I would be at defense. But obviously in GPP, do whatever you want. But in cash, I want to spend down. Like typically, I just want to spend down to the most reasonable, cheap defenses possible.
Tampa might be the highest one that I'm looking at in terms of price, but I don't know why I would spend. If I have $400 left over, I'll go up from the Bears to Tampa, but I'm probably targeting the Bears. I said last week, a lot of times what I'll do with cash defense is I will just sort the price by, from cheapest to most expensive. I'll go down the list and which one can I stomach? That's my cash defense.
Right. And you're in Chicago, so it's like you're touting the Bears defense, as a Bears fan.
I'm not a Bears fan. No.
So what are you a fan of any NFL team?
I grew up a Niners fan because I used to have to go to church a lot as a kid, and then we'd have church lunch afterwards. So I wouldn't even start watching football until 2:30, 3 o'clock our time. So I'd watch the West Coast games when I was a kid. So I watched the 49ers a lot, and I hated the Cowboys.
Okay.
So I was a huge Steve Young, Jerry Rice, Ricky Waters fan, Bill Romanowski and Ronnie Lott at the early part, Deion Sanders had a cup of coffee there. Those were my Niners teams.
Yeah, we were the complete opposite.
Did you become a Cowboys fan?
No, not as bad as being a Cowboys fan with the 49ers. Where am I from? I'm a Giants fan.
Oh, you're from New York. Oh, you're a Giants fan. Right. So my wife is a Packers fan. So we struggle. One of my favorite moments a lot.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments as a kid. I was 12. Was when Matt Barr hit that field goal in San Francisco.
Against San Francisco, yeah.
Lawrence Taylor recovered the fumble. right? They knocked Montana out of the game.
Was that 1990?
Yeah, that was 90. Yeah.
90, yeah, I remember that. My wife is from Wisconsin, so we butt heads a lot come playoff time. I just keep my mouth shut and try to keep a happy house, but
Yeah, but the
she gets
Packers
very
aren't making the
disappointed.
playoffs, so what does it matter?
No, but every time the Packers make the playoffs every time the Packers meet the Niners in the playoffs, they get crushed, and
Okay.
I just have to keep my mouth shut. Whereas if the Packers beat the hell out of the Niners some year, she'd probably gloat for a good solid 2 weeks. But hey, if Mama ain't happy, nobody's gonna be happy.
Right. Now,
So I
me, I
keep
don't
my
care
mouth
anymore.
shut.
Me, I just
I don't really care
root
who
for.
wins and loses these games. It's just about my money. I
Right.
get excited when the Niners are good. It's more fun to watch when the Niners are good for me, but I don't really have like a quote like favorite Gaga team in football.
Right. Okay, Alex, what do you got coming up this week, NFL content
I'm
wise?
just doing a lot of prize pick stuff. We're doing prize pick stuff every night for those night games, those island games. So we're taking a look at those boosters, those demon boosters on Thursday nights, Sunday nights, and Monday nights. The demons are coming out later. They used to come out Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Now they're coming out like Thursdays. So I'm doing those for the main slate games on Thursday mornings.
Is that free content or premium?
That is free content. The prize pick stuff is free. We're giving away the prize pick stuff. And it's like 3 to 5 picks an article.
Well, go
Giving
check
it
that
away.
out, RotoGrinders.com. Tomorrow, I'll have Derek Carty on, and we'll be talking just prize picks, just props, just no DFS, just props and pick them tomorrow for NFL. All the stuff, especially if big fan of those blitz projections that we offer here at RotoGrinders. So tune into that tomorrow. Then Squirrel Patrol, John Breslin will be on Friday. We'll be talking about GPP strategy. We'll be doing the tiers of all the stacks on the slate. So tune in on Friday for that. We got Grinders Live later today and crunch time for baseball, MLB. Go check that out if you're still here for the MLB streets. We got like two and a half more weeks of MLB before the playoffs. And hit that like button on your way out the door. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. And I'll see you tomorrow because I'm always here for you Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.